Yellow everyone, and welcome to my hardest project to date. I know I'll probably disappoint some of you guys as it's not my usual doll video, but Song is probably gonna release by the end of this year. I really do hope so.
While editing this video, it was announced for September 4th.
Before my content is all about Song, I still want to do some stuff about Hollow Knight, which is also something I don't think was done before, and that's the hot spring, but as a real fountain. For that, I'll let Minimi explain.
Thank you, Ruby. So this is the sketch I've made and my guideline for this work. It is up to scale, and for this project, I'll be using polymer clay for the first time. Some stuff may change, but I can tell you that this fountain is about 30 cm by 30 cm. I'm only going to do 3 statues, and unfortunately only 2 will be working, as these stuff are almost $10 each plus everything, so it's one place where I could cut a little. So let's get started! So for this video, I really tried to plan everything in advance. But like I said, I never use polymer clay, so I decided to go simple and start with the base. I took this roller and tried to smooth the clay as much as I could while still keeping a certain thickness. You know, I don't want this to break because it's too thin. I have so much more place where I can mess up than there, you know? After I got a decent sized pancake, I can put my design on it and trace it. I needed to put a lot of pressure in to be sure where my shape were, and once that was done, I can cut the excess out. And for that, I'm using this clay tool that I have and start by defining my shape and remove the excess. I was missing just a little bit of it in one place, so I just took the excess and placed it where needed. I just really didn't want to re-roll a whole pancake just for that little spot. Anyway, so that's the shape I came up with, and we can now start on the first baking. This was way too long and large for one biscuit platter, so I had to put 2 upside down and side by side in the oven and that on top. I didn't bake it all the way through, but just enough for it to keep its shape, which was about 15-ish minutes at 250. And after I made sure I didn't burn my house down, I started on the walls. These one I made a little bit thicker as they had to retain the water. And as you probably know, water is heavy. I also had to make it all about the same height, not too tall and not too short. And when I thought I had enough, I started to put everything together. I really wasn't sure how the polymer clay would act by asking it to stand up like that, but also because one part was baked and not the other. I seemed to be able to stick it, but I was now scared a little bit about the water retention part. So I added these little snake shape to act as caulking. This part was really fun to do, but the only thing is I manipulated it a lot, so some spot felt a little bit inward and outward, and it gave me some hard time later on, but I'll talk about that later. Now, after that baking, I could finally start on the skulls. So I again rolled a pancake. For this pancake, I will be doing the walls of the first skull. With the excess, I'll roll a second pancake for the base. Well, the base of the head of the skull, not the neck. I don't know if you get it now, but you'll see. Again, the shape of what I'm calling the neck is really important to me, more than the base and the wall at least. So I tried to find different way to make this shape perfect. And it just so happened that I have this candle, which I put my excess change in. That was the perfect size. I just had to add some parchment paper so it didn't stick to the candle. I didn't know if the polymer clay could stick, but I didn't want to find out. Now for the head shape, I'm doing this separately for the same reason. I really want that perfect dome shape. So again, I found this bowl and just added foil to give it a better shape like I wanted. also did a rough cut of the shapes as I don't want to lose too much clay, but also this foil is not making my life easier. So that's why it had to be rough. And then again, like the base, I didn't make it all the way, but maybe a little bit more, like 20 minutes, just to make sure that the head was really hard enough so I could come with my X-Acto knife and smooth it out. I then did the same thing for the two other skulls, so I'll leave you with a small montage here, but it's about the same thing 3 times, so I don't think you need to see that much. Now that all the shapes are done, before I start to put all the shapes together, I'll be adding the holes for the motor and a small dent for its core. And now that this is done, we can all put the pieces together. And of course, I'll be showing you the main front guy. I actually made the head a little bit too big for all of them, which wasn't a big deal. Just had to add a little bit more effort into blending everything. And at the same time, I also added the horns, which was super easy for the first one, but yeah, we're not gonna talk about the other one. Though, ironically, one of those horns keep breaking along the way, so I had to epoxy it a lot of time. And then again, I'll leave you with a small montage for the other one, but I don't know what happened with those one, but I really didn't put the same quality, and it's unfortunate, but it's still pretty in the end. Finally, after all of that, I have sculpted everything and we can finally start the painting. So for the hot spring and in Hollow Knight in general, the main colors are a mix of blue, black, and white. With some exception, of course, but to recall those colors, I decided to do a dark blue as the base color, so the undertone of the whole piece would have this bluish tint to it. I then went with a black wash after all of that. I thought that the hot spring were actually a pretty dark area if it wasn't for the glowing lake, so I thought more part would be a different shade of that blue. Anyway, the dark wash was helping me to do this without having to repaint some spot darker or lighter. After that was done, only on the skull, I added a white dry brush. I could have just decided to paint the white and not to bother with like 3 layers of dry brush, but I really wanted that blue to still breathe through, which, yeah, they almost look like all white on camera. I do give it to you, but up close, it gives that pixelated touch that I really love. Now, we need to make that fountain workable. So, unfortunately for me, after a lot of research, I came to the conclusion to use epoxy to seal everything. Now, you may be wondering, Ruby, why did you give yourself that much trouble to then use epoxy to seal everything? Good question. I'm glad you asked. So at first, I thought I would do everything in clay since it would be waterproof. I'm really good with clay as I did a lot of course in high school with clay, but all of that was scrapped as I did not have a kiln. So 1, could not burn the pottery to make it hard and waterproof. 2, I would not have been able to glaze it or anything on top of it. It would still have been acrylic. So whatever I did, the clay would have never hardened enough and the water would have reactivated it. So the only reason I used polymer clay was because after I bake it, it was lighter and less breakable than normal clay. So at the end, all my solution would not have been waterproof. If you have any idea how I could remake that waterproof, please let me know without epoxy, of course. So as you can also see, I've been using this tiny lamp torch that is curing nothing, so I bought this monstrosity. I'm not gonna show you more of the curing just because I feel if I show you more footage, I'll burn your retina through the screen. So when that was all cured, I just had to cure the fountain in place in the skull and seal the holes in the back of the base where I fed the fountain in the first place. I did a little water test, which was fine, but I also had the feeling like something was missing. You see, I didn't epoxy the bottom super well, so I had to make another pour of epoxy. And since I had to do that, I decided to add some fairy lights. I would have preferred if they were white, which I could not find. I really did search. I found maybe like one or two, but they were like $30 for a pack, which was really too much. These lights were like $2 at Dollarama, so, you know. But yeah, the water in the game does glow, so I really thought that if I didn't do that, it would have been a big miss on my part. So I just epoxied it in. And now the fountain is finally done and we can go to the final shots.